Hi, my name is Atul Dev. I'm a principal product manager at AWS Machine Learning, and today I'm here to talk about contact lens for Amazon Connect. So here's our agenda for today. I'm not going to go through every single item right now, but let's jump straight into it. Before we talk about contact lens for Amazon Connect, first let's talk very briefly about Amazon Connect. Now, Amazon Connect is an easy to use omni-channel cloud-based contact center that has been built with the same technology that Amazon has used in its contact centers over the last several years. It has a number of tools that allow businesses to provide an incredible customer service at lower cost. Now, some of the core capabilities of Amazon Connect include skills-based routing, interaction recording, where you can have obviously record the interaction between the customer and the agent. It provides you real-time and historical analytics, and it includes a high-quality voice that allows the agent and the customer, or the chat or the IVR and the customer, to have a great interaction. Now, what are some of Amazon Connect's differentiators? Now, obviously, it's all 100% cloud-based. There's no need for a lengthy setup. You don't have to install anything. You don't have to go through a professional services engagement. You can have this configured. You can just set up an Amazon Connect instance, and you're up and ready to go and start using this offering in your contact centers. We also have this concept of contact flows. Now, contact flows is a very powerful feature of Amazon Connect. It allows businesses to personalize the experience for customers in their contact centers. For example, it can use a Lambda function to get some specific information about the caller and personalize the experience based on the information, based on the historical records that the organization has about a particular caller. It's also an open platform, right? So all the data that is produced in Amazon Connect can be used by the business outside of Amazon Connect. We also allow a number of third parties to provide you an amazing set of capabilities as part of Amazon Connect. There are no lock-ins, and you can take your data and build on top of it. Finally, AWS has an incredible array of products and services that you can use in conjunction with Amazon Connect. Some examples are Amazon S3, Lambda, Kinesis. These are some examples of various services that customers often use in conjunction with Amazon Connect. Now, the most important thing is you don't have to pay a fixed contract, right? As with most AWS services, you only pay for the value or pay for the use of the service. Now, next up, let's talk about the challenges in contact centers. Now, these challenges are highly relevant to our discussion today for contact lens, right? So let's start with the first one. So today, obviously, contact centers get a ton of calls, and these calls result in millions of hours of call recordings. However, it's very difficult for businesses to actually understand what is the exchange that is happening between our customers and our contact centers. Now, this exchange contains very valuable information, and some examples of this valuable information could be feedback about our products and services. It could be a comparative mention. It could be a specific issue that the customer has about the website, for example, pricing, payment submissions, right? There are a number of things that constantly keep up in your business, and it's very hard to get a good sense for what that exchange actually looks like. The next one is compliance risk. Now, as most of you know, agents have to follow a certain set of guidelines that are considered best practices for good customer care. For example, the agent may be expected to say, hey, thanks for being a valued customer for the last X years, right? This might be a standard guideline in a wireless provider organization. Now, companies have seen that following these guidelines can help increase the customer sentiment scores. Similarly, in certain domains like insurance, right, where if you are calling to buy an insurance policy, the agent often has to read a long, lengthy disclosure. Now, not following certain legal guidelines could also result in significant fines for the organization. Now, as an operator or as a manager of the contact centers, you want to ensure that certain guidelines, whether they be company guidelines or regulatory guidelines, are followed. And you want that to happen in an automated fashion for every single contact. That's where the power of machine learning comes in. Similarly, one of the challenges that businesses have mentioned us is, hey, these interactions, understanding them is fine on ad hoc basis. We also understand, hey, how to track our known issues, but we also want to discover what is going on in our contact center. Sometimes we don't know what is going on. I just want to come to Amazon Connect and understand, hey, in the last 24 hours, in the last week, what are new trends that are emerging? And the advantage of understanding these trends is you can actually take specific corrective actions to resolve the new issues that you're discovering. Next up is real-time capabilities, right? Now, most of the offerings that are in the market today, they are primarily focused on analyzing call recordings. There are very few offerings that are actually analyzing the calls on a real-time basis. Next up is disconnected ecosystem of products. Now, you may buy one of the third-party solutions today, but the challenge with that is the offerings from that provider are very disparate, right? So you still have a lot of burden of managing multiple disconnected systems that don't talk to each other. You have to go through an extensive integration effort that can sometimes span several months to even just get started. Now, next point is important one, because a lot of these offerings actually require you to buy an annual contract. Now, for a small or medium-sized business, fixed contracts like these can be very cost prohibitive. And even for next one, right? Even for companies that can actually afford to buy some of these contracts, if the accuracy of the transcription on which your insights are going to be based is not good, then all the downstream analysis is not going to be helpful. So oftentimes, even large customers who go through the pain of getting an annual contract often don't see value of their analytics. Given all these reasons, customers kept asking, hey, you know what? Amazon Connect has helped us solve a lot of problems. We can take calls at scale and we can quickly scale up and down. We have no fixed costs. Why don't you do something like that for us for analyzing our calls? We just want a one-stop solution with Amazon Connect. And that is exactly what Contact Lens for Amazon Connect does. It's an out-of-the-box experience where non-technical users like supervisors and agents can start using the power of machine learning with just a few clicks. Now, obviously, today, Amazon or AWS offers a number of machine learning services, right? So the core machine learning services that you can use today are Amazon Transcribe, which does speech to text. You have Amazon Comprehend, which is a natural language processing service, takes in text and returns you outputs like sentiment. You have Lambda, you have S3, you have a lot of different services that you can do the stitching together and can create an experience for your users. But all that takes effort, and all the contact centers users have to do is focus on actually producing the analytics and taking actions based on them. So with Contact Lens for Amazon Connect, our objective was to make the life of the contact center manager easy and have them focus on what's most important to them, which is getting the right level of insights and take the required actions. Now let's talk about some of the features for Contact Lens for Amazon Connect, right? So the first feature is what we call as advanced search. Now, obviously today in Amazon Connect, you can search for calls and chats based on who took the call and what was the date and what was the time. Now, oftentimes that is not enough. You want to understand what is actually happening in those calls, and I want to search calls based on what is being said. For example, I may just want to understand, hey, in the last 1 week, how many customers actually called to cancel their service? Now, this is a critical insight because as a supervisor, I can quickly look at the specific set of calls and understand if there are interesting themes or trends emerging, right? And based on that, I can take certain actions. Now, the specific features that Contact Lens offers is you can search based on keywords and phrases, obviously. You can also filter that based on who is speaking, whether it's the agent speaking or whether it was the customer speaking. You can also search the conversation based on characteristics such as sentiment scores and non-talk time. Now, sentiment scores is an interesting concept that we have introduced specifically for contact lens, right? What sentiment score does is it looks at the conversation or the words said just by this agent and the words just spoken by the customer, and we produce a sentiment score for both the customer and an agent, a separate score. The scores range from -5 to +5. Obviously, -5 means the sentiment was most negative, and +5 means sentiment was highly positive. Now, this enables a lot of different set of analysis. You can, as a supervisor or a contact center manager or a QA assurance manager, now you can quickly find out all the calls where the customer sentiment was negative. All right. Now, this is pretty important again for the various types of analysis that you can understand. Hey, are there emerging patterns where specific things are said or are being done that are causing a negative sentiment for the customer? You can also identify examples of outstanding agent performance, right? So if the customer sentiment was negative or extremely negative when the call started, and the customer sentiment by the end of the call was very positive, that's an example of what we call as turtle flip. Now, this agent was highly skilled. He was able to change the outcome of a pretty negative call and make it into a successful one. So as contact center managers and QA assurance managers, we want to understand what are examples of these calls so that we can learn from them and we can teach other agents what successful interaction looks like. Moving on. So now let's say, so this is an example, by the way, of what this feature would look like. On the contact search page, you would now have options for just entering specific words or phrases. You can match any or match all. And you can also filter by who is speaking, whether it is the agent speaking or the customer speaking. You can also filter based on the sentiment score. Now we have two concepts here. You have the sentiment score for the entire call, which is an average sentiment score, or you can filter based on sentiment scores by stages. So sentiment score at the start of the call or sentiment score at the end of the call. Now that allows you to do the analysis that we just described earlier, which is turtle flips. You can also search based on non-talk time. Now non-talk time is, as we said earlier, is an important metric, because oftentimes if there is an unusual amount of non-talk time in the call, that may be an indicator that, hey, maybe the customer has brought up an issue that we were not aware of before, or the agent does not have the right level of training to answer this issue. So now, as a supervisor or a contact center manager, I can quickly filter the right set of calls that are of interest to me. So here we have two options for non-talk time. You can search based on the total non-talk time in the call, or you can also search based on the relative non-talk time in the call. Now, let's say a business sees about 20% of their call non-talk time is about normal. Now, they want to find out all calls where this threshold was exceeded, right? Now, that allows them to quickly understand the important calls. You can also do a search based on specific block of non-talk time. So non-talk time, just for folks who are not familiar, it's a combination of hold time and silence. All right, so next, let's say we have searched for our criteria, and let's say our search criteria here was customer sentiment ending less than -4. So I'm essentially finding a bunch of calls. Actually, let's make it the other way around. I want to find all the calls where the end sentiment was greater than +3. So I want to find all the calls that ended on a positive note, right? So now I got a list of calls. Now I click on one of those calls and I land on what we call in Connect as a CTR detail page. Now this page gives me details, various details about that call. Now as you can see in this slide, at the top right, we have this contact summary widget. On the right, we have a sentiment progression during the call, a customer sentiment progression during the call. We have the breakdown of the customer sentiment, and we have breakdown of the talk time. So you can see how much was the agent speaking, how much was the customer speaking, and how much was the non-talk time. So you can clearly understand kind of various trends just based on looking at this graphs. Below this, you can see this rich new waveform. Now this is something that is brand new, right? What you are going to see is details, various details, just based on a visual illustration. Things like, hey, how many times did the customer or the agent interrupt each other? What was the block of time? For example, here you can see a long kind of block of silence. You can also see that, hey, there are certain aspects here for the customer portion of the audio where the customer sentiment is negative. As a supervisor, I'm curious what's going on. I can just click on this and start listening to that specific portion. At the bottom, I see a rich transcript that almost looks like a chat interaction, right, between a customer and an agent. Now, the interesting thing about this is synchronized. So as I play and as the audio is progressing, I basically start seeing the transcript being highlighted. So there is an auto scroll that happens. And as the transcript is playing, as the call recording is being played, I can quickly see the specific portions of the call transcript being highlighted, and the page just keeps scrolling up. You can also obviously play around with it and break the auto scroll if you want to. Now, one of the most important things we released as part of this page is the redaction of sensitive content. Now, most organizations want some level of control on who gets to see sensitive information like credit card numbers and social security numbers, right? So, with the new release on this page, customers can basically decide, hey, who gets to see the redacted version of the call recording and the transcript, and who gets to see the unredacted version of the call recording and the transcript. Now, this is incredible power. We did not have this before in Amazon Connect or even in Contact Lens when we launched in preview. This is a brand new feature as part of the GA release. Next one is automated contact categorization. Now, this is part of a new page in Connect that we call as rules page. So obviously, till now, we spoke about advanced search, right? Where the supervisor had to do some ad hoc analysis. For example, they wanted to find out, hey, how many people said cancel the order? But now you may ask, hey, if I know certain things, right? Like cancellations or competitive mentions, I want to track them on an ongoing basis. I don't want to just constantly keep searching for them. I want to, every time a call comes in, I want Contact Lens to analyze that call for those specifics. Now, that's exactly what automated contact categorization does. There are two use cases that we mentioned. The first one is script adherence, right? The script adherence is basically what percentage of my employees or the agents followed the company guidelines or the regulatory requirements that I had, as a contact center manager, I had specified. The second one is I also want to find out all the calls where the customer mentioned one of my competitors. Now, here's the UI, right? For example, the example here is greeting script. So every time one of the following words or phrases, thank you for calling Amazon Connect, was mentioned during the first 120 seconds of the contact where the speaker is agent, and how can I help you today, right? If those two things were said, then assign the label greeting script to the call. Now, this is very powerful because now, based on this, you can quickly do an analysis. What percentage of my calls did not have this? And now the beauty here is you can have the specifics, whether it was mentioned, whether it was not mentioned. You can also select the first few seconds, last few seconds, or any time during the call, and who the specific speaker was, whether it was the agent or the customer. Now, these are pretty powerful features, and you can obviously add more conditions here, right? And you can have a bunch of different phrases that you may like. So, for example, to do the same kind of thing for competitive mentions, I could just have, hey, if any of the following words or phrases, and a bunch of competitors being mentioned here, were mentioned during the entire call, and the word and the speaker was the customer. If that's the case, then assign the label competitive mentions to my call. All right, so now next one is a very powerful feature, which we call it as theme detection. As we said earlier, it's great that now I can do advanced search where the supervisor has to go and search for ad hoc issues that emerge. It's very powerful when things happen out of your control and you did not know that this was going to happen, right? For example, COVID-19. Like, I just want to, as a travel company, I just wanted to find out, hey, in the last 1 week, how many people called because of COVID? So now I can do an ad hoc analysis. But this is obviously, if 3 months ago, this was brand new. So advanced search is good for when there is ad hoc analysis involved. Automated contact categorization is great when you know certain things that you want to track repeatedly all the time. Certain things like, as I said, comparative mentions or cancellation or agent compliance. Those are the various use cases. Theme detection is extremely powerful when you don't know what you want to track. You just want to discover new things that you did not know previously. Now, this is an extremely powerful feature. As part of the first release, what we are doing is we are identifying for each call the specific reason or the call driver, essentially why the customer called your organization. Now, this will be available on this as a user. You can see this detail on the CTR detail page that we just discussed earlier. In a few months, what you will find is theme detection now analyzes all these call drivers for individual calls and does intelligent analysis across these calls to tell you what is going on. For example, in this illustrative widget, right, you can see some trending topics. Online banking access denied. Now, this was the call driver for a bunch of calls, and what theme detection did was it found out that for 110 calls for your specified criteria, say in the last 1 week, this was the most prevalent issue. Now, based on this, I can quickly understand, hey, we did a deployment last week, and it looks like that deployment did not go too well. So now I can take specific actions to correct that. Supervisor assist. So now, obviously, we've been talking about a lot of these features where they are based on the call recordings. By end of this year, we are also going to be releasing real-time capabilities. Now, obviously, with real-time capabilities, you can expect the usual stuff, all the analytics that you would be getting, sentiment, transcripts, silence, all the various details that we've been discussing, you can get a lot of them in real time. But an additional capability that you would get as part of supervisor assist feature is essentially the ability to alert supervisors for certain criteria that they want to track in real time so that they can get on a call and help the agent. Now, classic examples for this could be, hey, the agent, there's a lot of attrition, and the agents that a contact center has may not be trained. So they may find themselves in situations where the customer is asking for something, they don't have a good answer, and they're repeatedly saying things like, I don't know. Or there might just be a heated exchange between the customer and the agent, and there's an intense conversation going on. The customer sentiment is obviously trending quite negatively, and the supervisor with wants to know which calls are actually going through experience like that so that they can actually go and resolve them. But today, all they can do is listen to randomly selected calls. They don't know really the status of their calls. So with supervisor assist feature on your real-time metrics page in Connect, you can actually get notifications for calls that meet your selected criteria. And you can define that criteria as part of the categorization of the rules interface that we just discussed a little while earlier. All right, so now we are almost at the end of the presentation here, but this is probably one of the most powerful features of Contact Lens. So all the data that Contact Lens produces, right? So call transcripts, the sentiment scores, the categorization labels, the details around interruption, who interrupted whom, for how long, and also the call drivers. All this information is available in a well-defined JSON in your S3 bucket. Now, there are two use cases that we know based on our customer usage so far, right? The first one is that businesses use this data in a BI tool to do more downstream analysis. So if I, as a business, if I just want to look at all my contacts in the last 1 month and do some sort of customer sentiment analysis in terms of trends, I can do that. I can build extensive scorecards for my agents over their performance over the last few weeks. The other use case that we have seen is also pretty interesting. Some customers who have data science teams take this JSON and they build additional models on top of it. The example of a model could be pairing the right set of agents and customers based on the experience that the customer had. So in future, when the customer calls, they are paired with the right agent. Again, now let's quickly talk about pricing. So today, there is a free tier for Amazon Connect, which is 90 minutes. The contact lens has the same free tier. So for the first 90 minutes, there is no charge. Beyond this, there's a monthly charge. For the first 5 million minutes, it's 1.5 cents per minute. Similarly, for usage beyond 5 million minutes in a month, there's a charge of 1.25 cents per minute. And just as we discussed earlier, as with all AWS services, this is usage-based pricing. You don't pay any upfront fixed costs. Here are some couple of customer references. Now, Intuit is one of our customers that has been using contact lens for a while. And then Accolade. Accolade is an emerging startup which is focused on healthcare, and they have been using contact lens for a while as well. So those are a couple of use cases where they have been using contact lens for a while now and have been seeing very good results. Thank you.